Hey everyone, welcome to Reality TV News Update, the place where we bring you the latest updates, fun moments, and behind-the-scenes stories you won't want to miss. The White Lotus creator looked firmly in control on Vatu until Christian saw through his latest move and struck first in the fourth episode of the landmark season. 8 days into Survivor 50, Mike White seemed to be exactly where he likes to be, in control. The White Lotus creator benefited from a tribe swap that reunited him on Vatu with former David vs. Goliath allies, Angelina Keeley and Christian Hubicki. Angelina and Christian are Goliath's allies, and after the tribe finished last in episode 3, he helped put the focus on Quintavious Q. Burdett and drew Ozzy Lust closer to him. But in this week's fourth episode that aired Wednesday night, Knife to the Heart, White's carefully constructed position unraveled. After a conversation that was meant to be strategic insight, but also manipulation, the self-described Machiavellian puppet master was surprised by Christian, one of the allies he thought he could still influence. The conversation instead set off alarm bells. By drawing parallels between Emily Flippin and Gabby Pascuzzi, Christian's closest ally who later betrayed him in David vs. Goliath, White didn't just stir up old wounds. He reminded the robotics professor exactly how dangerous his powers of persuasion could be. On day 9, Christian reversed the situation and killed one of the game's most formidable strategists before White could make the next move. This is how everything turned out. Conversations following the tribal council. The Vatu tribe appears to be in good spirits upon their return from tribal council in episode 4. Stephanie was the only person who didn't vote against Q, but she quickly got back on her feet and worked with Ozzy, Mike, and Christian to find a new foothold. At that point, Angelina appeared to be the clear favorite to go next, especially in Ozzy's eyes, though that target would not stay on her for long. Rivalries begin to emerge. Over on Sela, a Survivor talent show, and yes, it absolutely feels like something that could end up on Paramount Plus, helps keep Siri, Camilla, and Dee entertained. Rick gets little traction with a juggling routine, Jonathan and Charlie stage a fake fight, and Rizzo steals the show with a surprisingly solid Mickey Mouse impression. While the absurdity helps to break up the boredom, it does not lessen Charlie's growing resentment toward Rizzo. Charlie's simmering frustration has only grown since he revealed in the previous episode that he voted for Savannah rather than his closest ally to win Survivor 49. He even claims to be as enraged as Will Liz Wilcox, prompting a hilarious reminiscence of Wilcox's instantly quotable "I'm pissed" outburst from the 46th season. Meanwhile, on Kalo, the Genevieve-Aubrey rivalry continues to escalate. Feeling isolated, Aubrey heads into the jungle to search for an immunity idol, but Aubrey shadows her closely, clearly determined not to let her out of sight. Genevieve succeeds in locating her second Billie Eilish boomerang idol, while Aubrey fails. She previously sent one to Ozzy. This time, Rizzo is hit by the boomerang. Immunity and Reward Challenge. Episode 4's only challenge pulls double duty as both immunity and reward. The tribes begin by swimming to a narrow deck above the water and diving into the water to retrieve 2 buckets that are suspended there. From there, they head back into the water to remove sandbags from a submerged boat until it rises to the surface. Once afloat, they use the buckets to bail out the excess water, load letter cubes into the boat, and push it to shore. At the end, those cubes must be arranged into a massive arch puzzle that spells celebration. Immunity is granted to the first 2 tribes to finish, while the losing tribe goes to tribal council. The tribe that finishes first overall also earns a reward, a meal cooked by Survivor superfan and country star Zach Brown. Like most Survivor water challenges, this one looked absolutely brutal.
Sela junked out to an early lead thanks largely to Jonathan's raw strength and reached the puzzle first, but Kalo surged late to steal the win, giving Aubrey, Colby, Tiffany, Coach, Chrissy, Genevieve, and Joe both immunity and some quality time with Zach Brown. That left Vatu, a tribe that probably could have used Q's muscle in a challenge like this, dead in the water. They never even managed to get their boat to the finish line to start the puzzle, and were once again headed to Tribal Council. Reward at the Sanctuary. Although Kalo's excursion to the Sanctuary might have appeared to be nothing more than stunt casting, it turned out to be one of the more charming parts of the episode. Zach Brown cooked for the tribe while spearfishing for tuna and discussing the similarities between spearfishing and Survivor: patience, precision, and timing. More than anything, he came across as a genuine fan, thrilled to be part of a show he clearly loves. This is what made the segment successful. There has been understandable skepticism around the celebrity presence in Survivor 50, especially in a milestone season that already has plenty going on. But Brown's appearance didn't feel like a distraction. It appeared to serve as a reminder of the ubiquity of the show and the significance that Survivor still holds for people of all walks of life. Machinations at Vatu and Tribal Council. Back at Vatu, the strategy appears to be straightforward: vote out Angelina, but that changes the moment Mike White launches what he calls Operation Save Angelina. What should have been a straightforward vote with no heat on Mike quickly spirals once Mike decides Emily needs to go instead. Feeling close to Ozzy, Mike chooses not to loop him in, knowing Ozzy is locked in on voting out Angelina. Instead, Mike pulls in Angelina and Christian and claims he has Stephanie on board to blindside Emily. Christian quickly informs Emily of Mike's strategy after Christian notices that pitch raises red flags. The game changes. Mike makes the analogy between Emily and Gabby, Christian's closest ally who later betrayed him in David vs. Goliath, becomes the emotional tipping point of the episode. More importantly, it shows Christian how dangerous Mike's powers of persuasion can be. 3 of the 4 episodes this season are named after things Christian has said. Christian decides to strike, pulling in Stephanie and Emily, and predicts Ozzy will waste his vote on Angelina and sets up a 3-2-1 split that would send Mike in a blindside. The plan is carried out exactly as Christian outlined it at Tribal Council. Ozzy votes for Angelina, Mike and Angelina vote for Emily, and Christian, Stephanie, and Emily combine to send Mike to Ponderosa. It is stunning evidence that on Survivor 50, even puppet masters can get their strings cut, even for a player who appeared to be one of the season's most connected strategists for the first 9 days. Stay tuned tomorrow for THR's exit interview with Mike White.
Power can seem to last forever on Survivor 50, until it suddenly doesn't. Few players embodied that illusion better than Mike White, who entered the milestone season with a reputation for strategic finesse, social awareness, and a knack for staying just ahead of the chaos. For much of the game, he lived up to that reputation. However, Mike's carefully constructed position collapsed in a single tribal council, proving once more that control on Survivor is only temporary. In a stunning surprise that reshaped the entire season, Mike quickly established himself as a central character. He didn't have to be the loudest voice in camp or the strongest competitor, but neither did he have to be. Instead, he played a more subdued and deliberate game, establishing relationships across alliance lines, listening more than speaking, and subtly directing decisions without appearing to be in charge. In the beginning of the game, he was able to avoid becoming a target while still influencing outcomes with this style, which worked wonderfully. By the time the merge hit, Mike was sitting comfortably in what many fans would call the power position. He was frequently the swing vote when difficult decisions needed to be made, because he had connections to nearly every major alliance. More importantly, he was trusted by other players. He was valuable in a game marked by paranoia because they perceived him as calm, rational, and predictable. But Survivor 50 is not a season where predictability lasts long. Cracks began to form as the numbers decreased. Mike's strength, his wide web of relationships, also became his biggest vulnerability. Players started to compare notes. Mike thought the conversations were private until they started to overlap. His promises began to show subtle discrepancies. Suddenly, the same trust that had elevated him began to erode. When a smaller alliance decided to take a chance because it felt threatened by Mike's power, it marked the turning point. If he made it all the way to the end, they knew they couldn't beat him. His resume lacked balance, and his social game was too strong. The only choice was to strike before he could anticipate it. The Blindside's invisibility to Mike was what made it so effective. He seemed at ease, even confident, in the days leading up to Tribal Council. He talked openly about plans for the future and potential targets, but he never said that he was in danger. He even gave the impression of orchestrating the vote. However, the strategy was already in place behind the scenes. A small group of players quietly agreed to flip, many of whom had previously worked with Mike. They frequently spoke in pairs to keep their conversations brief and private so as not to draw attention to themselves. Even those who weren't part of the main plan got just enough information to keep the secret. Fluid, swift, and nearly impossible to detect from the outside, it was a textbook example of a contemporary Survivor blindside. The tension was palpable at Tribal Council, but it wasn't clearly directed at Mike. The topic of discussion was trust, shifting loyalties, and the game's unpredictability. While thoughtfully contributing, Mike did not realize that the discussion was primarily about him. Then came the vote. His expression barely changed, just a glimmer of surprise when the first vote was read and Mike's name appeared. However, the reality dawned when the second, third, and fourth votes were cast. There were no numbers. The alliances he thought he could rely on had vanished in an instant. It was undeniable when the final vote was revealed. Mike White, who had once had complete command of the game, had been taken by surprise. His torch snuffed, Mike handled the moment with a mix of shock and admiration. In his final words, he acknowledged the move for what it was, a bold, necessary strike by players who recognized the threat he posed. There was only acceptance that this is how Survivor functions at its highest level, not bitterness. The remaining players were shocked by the Blindside's aftermath. It was a clear demonstration of strategic awareness and courage for those who orchestrated the move, which was a significant boost to their resume. They had successfully eliminated one of the game's greatest threats. However, the move also brought about new uncertainty. The power structure suddenly fell apart when Mike left. The alliances that had come together to eliminate him now had to split up. Trust, already fragile, became even tenuous. Instead of asking, "When do we remove Mike?" to ask, "Who's next?" After so many seasons, the Blindside served as a reminder for viewers of what makes Survivor so compelling. Even experienced players, even those who seem firmly in control, are never truly safe. The game evolves constantly, and success often depends on adapting to shifts that can happen in a matter of hours. Mike's downfall also highlighted a key lesson. Managing perception is just as important as managing relationships. While he had built strong connections, he may have underestimated how others perceived his position. To them, he wasn't just a reliable ally, he was a frontrunner. And in Survivor, frontrunners are rarely unchallenged until the very end. In many ways, Mike played an excellent game. He positioned himself at the center of the action, avoided early targets, and navigated intricate social dynamics. But Survivor isn't about playing well, It's about playing better than everyone else, all the way to the finish line. And sometimes that means recognizing when your own success has made you a target. As Survivor 50 continues, the ripple effects of Mike White's Blindside will be felt for episodes to come. By making the move, the players have indicated that no one is immune to challenge, and those who remain must now navigate a game that has become even more unpredictable. Every Survivor participant eventually learns a lesson from Mike's journey. Power is fleeting, trust is fragile, and the game can change with a single vote.